Sup my dudes, and Selena if you happen to be watching. Since the last merry-go-round ended up being a total disaster, I thought it would only be appropriate to give you guys another Origins video. Today's case study will revolve around the Druid Henge. The only reason why this tower is not considered the worst tower in the game is because the 7-11 mage exists. So let's get to the drawing board and map out some rules, shall we? Obviously, the first rule is that I can only build Druid Henge this run, goddammit. Pre-built towers will be discarded, and the bonus towers which I can't get rid of will not be upgraded. Now you all know it's a wet dream of mine to complete this on impossible from a fresh save, but in Origins this is simply not possible. Unlike the previous two games in the trilogy, Origins is clearly meant for mature audiences. The difficulty curve is steep, and it also discusses mature topics and themes, which is the main reason why it's unfairly judged and underrated. But I digress. I'll be playing the game on impossible, but it won't be from a fresh save. I can use all the stars I want this run, but in return my hero pool has to adhere to the progression in the game. And as you should know by now, all stages will be completed, no lives lost. If it for some reason went totally over your head that this challenge is going to be hitting me hard, then stage 1 will surely change your mind, because as it turns out, this level is borderline impossible with only druids. I went in on the first attempt with no stars invested, thinking this was going to be a slam dunk. But my two druids were literally not even able to kill the first gnoll. And even with maxed out stars, they were still stuck on the first enemy. But by pulling a 200 IQ play, I was able to babysit my druids into killing their first enemy. These ideal male specimens were now smelling blood, and they were even able to kill their second enemy, all by themselves. But the third enemy was fast approaching the exit, and they could not kill him. And at the very last second before he escaped, I managed to call the wave and call in reinforcements to get the situation under control again. Now it pains me to do this, but I was too proud to accept the elves' generosity this run. But even without this barrack, level 2 was a complete pushover. So let's talk about stage 3.
And now comes the interesting part.
This enemy is going to be the main cause for concern this run. The Kingdom Rush subreddit better brace itself, because if this ends up being impossible, there might be a new wave of anti-flyer propaganda headed their way. Luckily this stage was very possible, but I actually ended up spending 50 minutes trying to complete it, because I wanted to keep my upgrades to a minimum. I could have just trivialized the whole encounter with level 5 lightning, but I went the extra mile just for you. So enjoy the execution of wave 6 in full. I am happy to announce that the Andor level has no waves dedicated to parathons, and there was a constant flow of ground units to keep my druids busy. Other than that, the thick boys were kind of annoying to kill with my low DPS, but Iridan's porcupine ability really came in handy. Here I was buckling up for the massive flying wave at the Royal Gardens, but the gnolls have never been the brightest of races, so they kept bringing in new ground units for my druids to target. This caused some major collateral damage to the flying enemies, who were ill prepared for the event. Now if you've ever played this game under any set of restrictions, you would know that Griffin Point is a worthy last stage in the first chapter. This level swarms you in the last few waves and has lots of waves dedicated to flying enemies. You may think that I will be horribly outgunned with my gear, which consists of nothing but the oldest weapon in warfare history. But the historians tells us that even in this time period, rocks were still in fashion. So who needs fancy artillery options when we have rocks? I'm sorry to break it to you, but medieval people didn't throw oil at the enemies. This is a big misconception, and as a wise man once put it,
you can just throw rocks. They cost you nothing, they take no preparation, and you throw them at people, they get hurt. It's great. So boiling oil is just needlessly elaborate.
I think this is yet another reason why Origins is not as popular. What can I say? Reality is often disappointing, but I for one think it's sad that Ironhide no longer has the courage to produce thought-provoking titles which challenges the player in more ways than the gameplay. But alas, all we have to look forward to these days is when Ironhide will announce the Kingdom Rush spin-off game based on Clash of Clans, starring Taurus in the role of the builders. and later soft launch it in Guatemala for a month until it's inevitably rolled back into development for a total overhaul. Now I know you probably think I'm making a mistake here, but I decided to stick with Eridan for this level since he has more consistent range damage than the Jiggler. I know, my jokes are stale, but if I call myself out on it, that makes it funnier. Right. The main hurdle this level had to offer was wave 11. After a few attempts, it became clear to me that I needed to prepare for the wave ahead of time. So I focused on clearing wave 10 efficiently so I could afford to stack up reinforcements at the entrance. This made all the difference, and I could now use my spells at optimal moments and not just use it because I was backed up. After that I just needed to get through the last few waves, which I already sort of figured out with my previous challenge, but it was actually a lot easier this time around because Shocking Impact almost made up for me not having Catha, and then I could use the extra damage Eridan had to offer to fully make up for it. Now, I can see my fictional YouTube manager really wanted me to do a bit about the comics since he didn't skip it outright, but I will have to disappoint him once again. These comics are so generic that I can't think of anything. But anyway, we finally unlocked the tower, the Apex Rock Thrower, the Shredded Gandalf, the Grandmaster of the Rock Tossers. This guy has thrown so many rocks in his time that he has evolved past merely throwing and is now telepathically hurling them at the enemies with his mind. He might even be wiser than the wise mystical tree. Truly an incredible genetic specimen. We are lucky to even be in his presence. But what is that I hear you say? No, that's not the end of it. There's more. The tower comes with, for a limited time only, overpriced bears who will block, fight and kill all incoming enemies for you until they encounter a sexual harasser. But wait, you haven't even heard the best part yet. Biological warfare. It doesn't matter what disease the enemy is carrying. HIV, SARS, Ebola, the bubonic plague, you name it. Southern Curse will transmit it to all nearby enemies for the low price of 250 gold. It has never been easier to commit war crimes. Well, that's actually not entirely true, but when it works, it works. Grimsburg is definitely a stage that makes my top 5 list of reasons why I've procrastinated doing this run for so long. This stage introduces the Goonies, by far the lowest ranking life form in these forests, but also the deadliest. This enemy is going to be a priority number 1 to exterminate in these coming stages. Luckily, the funny fart plants was here to clean up when my pest control team was getting overwhelmed. With the vermin taken care of for now, here comes the second reason why this stage was a dreaded one. Sonic the Hedgehog is really looking grim in his old age. With their fast speed, these need to be locked down ASAP. And the main way to do this is buying the overinflated bears. And then I have to deplete their 4500 HP pool with the druid's low DPS. This all adds up to a recipe for disaster. Dare I even say that these enemies will be an even bigger problem than the Gloomies. However, this task was no match for your favorite internet celebrity. And in a total accident, I managed to group them up just when Sylvan Curse was active. And I took my chance and let Zeus take it from there. After this I backed up accordingly and held the line until they slowly but surely died off. Crystal Lake has always been a tough stage. Specifically because the last wave kills the mood faster than walking into a store in the middle of September and seeing Christmas cookies being sold. I gotta say the Goonies didn't do a whole lot this stage. It was feasible to spawn kill the majority of them with reinforcements only. And I could have actually beaten this stage on my first try, but I was victim to a vengeance moment. This was outrageous. It was unfair even. The bears already cost way too much for what they do, and they can't even be expected to do the bare minimum. I was just getting ran down like an animal on repeat on this stage. And eventually I came to realize that my druid simply does too little damage to burst down the snatches. And it was just way too much work to micro bears around to hold 3 of them down at once. So Rexon ended up being the one to get me out of this soup. I didn't even need a ranged hero to spawn kill the Goonies anyway. After such a strenuous stage, I needed some relief to take the top off. So I decided to take a little detour and swing by my boy, Dr. Earnhardt. But unfortunately, he was all out of the good shit. He did tell me of a place nearby that was lush with shrooms, so I wasted no time and made the haul to Neverwonder. This trip didn't end up paying off, because malicious foul witchcraft had even corrupted the mushrooms in these parts, and I now found myself in the middle of an ambush. The upside to this is that this stage for some reason has no gloomies, and I did have lots of area damage for all the mushrooms, but very little stalling power. So I did the next best thing and filled the map with tier 1 and tier 2 druids and took full advantage of Shocking Impact. There was a few close calls, but I managed to wing it somehow and make it out on my first try. And I was now on the road again. I didn't make it very far however, before I was arrested by militia later that day. I was now facing charges for the war crimes I had committed with this blacklisted tower, and court was now in session. Her evidence was very thin, I must say, and I had left no witnesses in my wake. so I thought I could just wiggle this one with my smooth talking skills. But before long, it became clear to me that Militia was not going to play ball on this court. She had a good standing within the Twilight Elf community, and apparently that was enough for them to believe her fabricated evidence. So I had no choice but to demand a trial by combat. My trial was not without its hiccups though. The bandersnatches pulled a drive-by on me yet again, and after that, the mushrooms acted up on me. Luckily enough, Militia was dumb enough to rule that 3 attempts was in order since I had no priors. This stage has lots of gloomies, but they were never really a problem to deal with, since there were so many ground units which allowed my henches to just bomb the whole motherfucking place. There was one point when I ran out of ground units, but then I just called the next wave and let the portal spawn more enemies. I know I've been harsh on the Sylvan Curse in the past, but oh man, that 1 out of 10 times when it actually does something, it does not go unnoted, I must say. Never have I witnessed something so glorious, something so satisfying. After changing my undies, I was dialed in and ready to fight Militia, and I really thought that this was going to be a tough nut to crack, since my DPS far from measured up to the Arcane Archers. But the fact that Militia takes a few naps in between phases made the druids get the jump on her. And with Sylvan Curse progging away, her afflictions quickly spread to her peers, like she was the high school whore with an STD. Now, it was at this point in the playthrough I began to wonder if I had been selling this tower short all these years. There had been some tricky parts here and there, but overall the tower had been a true trooper and coasted me along the game smoothly, and the Ascent proved no exception to this. But my reign of terror might be coming to an end soon. We're in the end game now, and that means there will be no room for error. Therefore, I had made the bold decision to stick with Rexon so I could take care of Thanos and the other big threats coming up. A lesser Russia would be worried about the facehuggers in this level and pick the ranged hero because they fly now! And that would probably have been a safe bet. But I had a vision, and it would not have been possible without my trusty bears. They may be overpriced, but they were ready to take one for the team. They held their ground and smooched the enemy head on. You should have seen it. It was beautiful. And when the HP was running low, the reinforcements were at the ready to take their place in line. After the strategic stroke of brilliance, the final 2 waves were looking quite tame in comparison. Just some spiders and some support units, which didn't really stand a chance. Mactan's retreat is one of the few levels where artillery really shines, so I knew it wasn't going to be that bad. However, it did have some tricky bits when my lack of stalling power came into play, or rather it didn't come into play. Wave 9 was especially a standout moment on the stage, which I vaguely remembered. It was close, but I somehow managed to squeeze through it. I was also worried about the surprise golem who teleports to the exit at wave 14, which is why I hired Rexon, but unfortunately a sneaky spider got past my last line of defense, and I had to use up Vindicator on this little rascal. Luckily, I was able to kill nearby spiders so I could provide Rexon with the necessary sustenance to stall the golem for just long enough, until my bears could take over and Rexon could support the other exit, which was in a tough spot as well. Alright, we're already here at the final stage, and I really tried to make a climax out of this. I picked Eridan, and as promised I didn't upgrade my renegades, but even then I was just breezing through the stage. The golem did at least get the jump on me, but after noting that, I went back and made sure to stall some of them until it was safe to round them up for lightning, and off I went to fight the final boss. I am not entirely sure how this works, but I'm pretty sure that's gonna hurt in the morning. Or not, because this abomination is not going to survive my reign of boneless for very long, and I made sure to save up plenty of gold, just in case something went wrong. It's over. Yeah, boy! And I took 2 attempts, that wasn't that bad. Druid Henge is actually a really good tower. What the fuck? This was so much easier than I thought it would be. When you spam the tower, it's actually really good because of all the slow, and it deals true damage. Like the Parathons at Griffin Point was the only difficult part about the flying enemies.